Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Today let's talk about needles. Needles can be quite confusing if you go to buy them for your sewing project, but they are essential to making sure that your project comes out correctly and that you don't have problems with breakage or sewing stitches incorrectly or things like that. So there's various different kinds of needles. Some are very specific, like this one's directly for leather, this one is for jeans, denim, this one is for vinyl. You have ones for machine quilting, you have ones if you're doing machine embroidery, but I'm just going to cover the two basic ones that I normally use for all my everyday sewing. So the universal needle is probably something that you'll use most often in your sewing. This is meant for woven fabrics, things like cottons and most apparel fabrics and things like that. They will fit most sewing machines that are home sewing machines. These needles have a flat back, and when you're putting the needle in your sewing machine, the flat part always goes towards the back of your machine. One other thing to note when buying needles is the size of the needle. You'll notice down at the bottom it has a 70/10. This one has a 90/14. That is the size of the needle. The bigger the number, the thicker the fabric. One number is actually a European size and one number is an American size. But your most common ones are going to be the 70/10, the 80/12, or the 90/14. And basically you have thin, medium, and heavier. So 70/10 would be for things like chiffons, very lightweight type materials. Your 80/12 is going to be just your standard, like if you're sewing with quilting cottons, just a mid-weight kind of everyday fabric. Your 90/14 would be for heavier fabrics. May not be, not quite as heavy as say like blue jean material, but definitely a heavier than like a quilting cotton. The other needle I want to cover that I use a lot of is the stretch needle. Now, anytime you're going to be sewing with a fabric that stretches, you need to use a stretch needle. The difference between these and your universal needles is actually the point of the needle. On a stretch needle, it has more of a ball point instead of a very, very sharp pointed end. And that actually helps in sewing with a stretch fabric, because a stretch fabric is more of a knitted look to it versus the standard woven fabric. Again, you have the same sizing. You have a 75/11 and a 90/14. So this would be for lightweight knits, stretch fabrics, and for heavier stretch fabrics. You need to make sure that you change your needle fairly regularly. Definitely if you ever hit a pin when you're sewing, or if it hits the metal throat plate on your machine, you need to change your needle. And I would recommend changing it every few projects. If your needle gets dull or bent, it will seriously affect the way it sews. Most needles have about 5 needles per package, and you can buy some, say like this denim needle or these vinyl needles that actually have multiple sizes in one package. So I hope that helps a little bit when buying needles. As I said, make sure you always sew with the correct needle for your project, and that will help a lot for your project to come out great.